All right, guys, I'm just here at the moment, and I'm with a lovely lady who I've been in contact with for about a week, and for legal reasons at the moment, and also for her protection and for protection of her kids, I'm keeping her off camera at the moment. But we're going to share some pretty heavy information involving accusations of child abuse and cover-up that are pretty serious. Unfortunately, we've actually heard these stories before, and it doesn't get easier any time. But I think this is very pivotal for people to understand the underbelly of this system that's going on here, and that we've reached the point now that we need to put an end to this institutionalised and interconnected child abuse that's just absolutely prevalent, and particularly prevalent in Australia. So, Callie, do you want to introduce yourself and just give a little bit of a background to your story, and then we'll jump into what's been happening with you and your children?
Yeah, so I'm originally from the UK. I moved over here to Darwin when I was about 15 years old. And I have a background myself of childhood abuse from quite early on. I was only really aware of the abuse that happened around the age of 15 by my stepfather, and that was here in Darwin. Not long after they skipped town on me, and I haven't had any contact with them since. And I only very recently recovered memories from around age 3 onwards. I'm still recovering memories of abuse. So as I go on this journey with what's happening with my children, I'm recovering more memories.
Yeah, it's all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Who was your primary abuser?
My stepfather primarily. And then there's history going back where my mother, she was born on a military base in West Germany, and she was adopted off, and I don't think it was legally. That was done by her father, who was in the military, to a foster family who abused her throughout her whole childhood as well. And I'm having memories where they also were perpetrators against me as a small child. So
both parents?
My mother's foster family. So there's a lot of history of it being generational within my family.
Yeah.
And
you said West Germany, military base. Do you know any more about that?
No. See, these are things I'm feeling like I've been thrown down the rabbit hole to have to learn about my own history to kind of understand what's happening here right now with the situation with my children. So
yeah, but that's Black Forest area that we're talking about, yeah?
Yeah.
Which is for those that don't know, that's the area that's pretty infamous and near the Ramstein US military base in West Germany. So you come over to Australia at what age?
So we moved to New Zealand initially when I was about 13, and then not long before my 16th birthday, we moved here to Darwin in Australia, and pretty much been here ever since, really.
Yeah. So then, should we go straight into the revelations that you started getting that from your children, and then well, let's go from the start. When did your children first disclose to you about abuse that was happening?
So it was around about this time last year, actually. My 4-year-old daughter was telling me a story involving a prominent political figure
Yep.
here in Darwin. And she was telling me of parties that her daddy took her to in the city. And this particular party, this political figure was dancing in front of her wearing a crown and not very much clothing, and in a really provocative way, and shaking his bum at her. And the fact that she even mentioned this person's name, I thought was really strange. And
So she knew his name?
Yeah, and the whole story was strange, and I didn't know what to think of it. And knowing what I know now, and since her disclosures later on that year, I feel guilty that I told it to stop telling stories and dismissed it. But at the time, I was really puzzled. I didn't understand why or how she got the story.
Yeah. And so what age was she when she's told you that?
Only 4.
So she's 4 years old.
Oh, yeah.
For a child to be making up
Yeah.
stories about a prominent political figure
Yeah.
dancing around. So did she mention any abuse at these parties, or did she just speak? Can you describe what she told you?
Well, no, because I kind of shut it down because I was just so confused, and I said, don't say things like that. Got a lot of guilt about that now, but so yeah, she didn't carry on because I kind of stopped her there.
So she never made any more accusations about that at the time.
No.
So so if we step forward, so you've got another child too. Did he make any of the similar claims?
No, he didn't. So it was just my daughter that made the disclosures. My son, who is older, you could see when I tried to bring it up with him in the early days of the disclosures that my daughter made, that he was really uncomfortable. He wouldn't make eye contact. He really didn't want to talk about it. He found it really traumatic.
So he's gone into like a freeze mode, sort of dissociative, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you go from that, so what was the next time you heard any other accusations from your children?
So it was in December of last year, a couple of weeks before Christmas. My daughter just disclosed to me whilst we were baking one Saturday that her 10-year-old brother, my son, had been abusing her that morning when I was in the shower, sexually. And I was in absolute shock. I actually had to Google whether 10-year-old boys could do that, because it's not anything that ever crossed my mind. Like, these are my babies, they're innocent. And then it was, where would he have gotten this sort of behaviour? Where would he have seen it to know what to do?
It's a learned behaviour.
Yeah.
So you've gone from there. You spoke to her about that, and did anything else come up? So this was December last year.
Yeah. Then they were going to their father's for the night, and
so you separated from the father.
Yeah.
So at this point, you had dual custody.
So he would have access to them on the weekends, about 3 nights a fortnight. So on this particular day that our daughter disclosed to me, they were going to their father's that night, and I was still in shock, and I didn't know what to do. And our son has ASD, so it just made it that much worse. So I decided that I just needed some time to think about it, like what my next step was. I just said to her, I said, look, if anything happens, like if he tries to do anything, your brother, make sure you say something to Daddy, because at this point I didn't think that he was involved, and I didn't really know what to think, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So at this point, you don't know the father's been involved.
No.
And abusing the kids as well. When did you start to piece that together that he might be involved?
So once I came home the next night, my daughter was making more disclosures.
Yeah.
And it was by the Tuesday after her end of year preschool concert that we got home, and I had already made the decision that we were going to go to the doctors and have her medically checked.
What for in particular?
Just to see if she had been harmed, and just to,
So were you looking for signs of sexual abuse?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Because it was actually on the Monday night that I had called her father, and I had told him what had been disclosed, and he was dismissive straight away, saying that she probably made it up. And he said, "Well, go get it checked." So yeah, I decided that's what I was going to do. And I'd made the decision to do that day, and it was right before we were going to go that she made the disclosures of her father. And at that moment, I knew that I just needed to call the police straight away.
So can you give any detail of what she specifically said to you about her father?
Yeah, she basically, in her own words, described, sexual penetration by her father. And she just said, "Daddy put his willy on me, and it hurt." And she told me that she was scared and that she wanted me to keep her safe. So, yeah, it was.
How did you feel at that moment? Like, what was going through your mind at that point?
Just absolute shock. I was in shock. There's no other way to describe it. My mind was racing, and I felt sick, and I was just horrified. Like, we didn't have a good history. There was a history of abuse there. But you just don't, it's the last thing that you imagine, that, a father is going to do that to their child. Despite my own history of sexual abuse,
Yeah, and we'll get to in a minute that, it's very likely that he's involved within a ring here, as we'll see. We'll get to a bit of the cover up, but then, so you've gone to the doctor. What happened at the doctor? What did the doctor say?
Well, the police came, because I called the police, and then we went to the hospital, escorted by the police, where we met the child abuse task force. And at this point, and I'm still in shock, and it's all just, it seems to be all happening really fast. And then the child abuse task force take us to the sexual assault referral centre, where they are going to do like an examination on my daughter. In this time, before arriving at the sexual assault referral centre, which is called SARC, they said that I need to do something with my son because he can't come, and he's autistic, so he can't just go with anyone. And they said that I need to do something with him. He can't come. He can't be around. Almost making it like he's a perpetrator in this and not a victim. And it just so happened that a friend of mine, and she was a very recent friend who I'd only met very recently, who now I believe was intentionally planted at this time, because she actually interfered with a lot of the investigation. She happened to offer to take him because she had an autistic child herself. So, you know, I felt I could trust her. And at that point in time, I wasn't really given any other options. I was told, you need to do something with him.
Do you think this was to separate the kids so there was no collaborating story?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so you've gone from there. So was there police? Did you make police reports about the abuse?
Yeah. So obviously we after we got into the sexual assault referral centre, and she'd had her examination. And then the police said that they would be in contact in the next couple of days for her to have her child forensic interview.
Yeah.
So we're going through the whole process of the investigation at this point. There's an open investigation. So it was about 2 days later that my daughter had her CFI. And
so what's a CFI? That's the interview?
Yeah, the child forensic interview, in which at the age of 4, she had to go into a room on her own without me, which, you know, is pretty daunting. You know, so...
Have you been able to see what was said in the reports?
No. And it was told to me that she had made no disclosures. However, in paperwork that I've seen thereafter, it was told that she did make disclosures that were apparently so unbelievable, and names that she named that were unbelievable. And, you know, and this was used to say that I had coached her. So
that's just like the classic case we see all the time too. So they said the accusations were so unbelievable they basically denied it. That a 4-year-old is making things up.
Yeah.
So after this, when did things start going downhill as far as custody?
So it was the day after she'd had her CFI that I had a phone call from the police saying that they were coming over to come and collect me to do my interview. And they arrived at my doorstep, and I disclosed to them on the phone when they were on their way over that my daughter had made further disclosures the night before. She couldn't sleep.
So she's made more disclosures to you the night before?
Yeah. She couldn't sleep, and she was telling me these things, and, you know, since
Can you go at all into what she said?
Yeah, well, since I've been told that she wouldn't disclose in the CFI, I was actually told by another police officer that I could make recordings of her if she felt comfortable to tell me things. So yeah, she had said to me that she was naming more names of other perpetrators involved, and this was my ex-partner's, their father's new partner's family, and she told me a few names, and she spoke of parties at the step-grandmother's house, and she spoke of other children. She spoke of a video camera, it being videoed.
So it was being video recorded, the abuse. Yeah.
She spoke of even a baby being abused, that there was a lot of blood. She spoke of like witnessing anal penetration, and she said it in such detail that a 4-year-old shouldn't know these things.
They don't know that world exists. There's no way. Yeah.
And I could see that she was clearly traumatized by what she had seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's made these accusations the night before, and so, you know, like, based just on that evidence and her disclosures, that there's obviously a very well organised and interconnected pedophile ring operating here that they're involved with, and that your ex-partner was involved in this ring. So what happened with the police after that?
So I told them I had this reporting, and I was, straight away I was accused of withholding evidence. And I said, look, this was late last night that I took this recording, and I'm telling you now. And not that long after, they turned up at my doorstep with a warrant for my phone, like just straight away. And I was wondering what the hold-up was, because they seemed to just stand around waiting.
Did you get a copy of the warrant? Did you see the warrant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the time, I'm in shock, and I'm just, going along with it. Like, sure, have the phone. I was happy to hand over the evidence. I didn't think that it was going to go the way it did.
You're just completely naive about how powerful this ring was operating.
Yeah.
So you've given them the phone, so they've got the evidence of the disclosures, because they've already said that she didn't make any disclosures in the interview, but then she's done it to you, so they've got that evidence as well.
Yeah.
So what happened after that?
So they handed my daughter this little white bear, and me being naive like I can be sometimes,
right.
I was like, oh, that's really kind, not realising that's what they do right before, the child protection services, whatever you call them. Up here, we call them territory families. Remove child, they give them a bear.
Right.
And that didn't even cross my mind at that moment. I did think it odd, but kind. And at that moment, two workers from territory families walked through my gate, and they told me that they were removing my children because it was alleged that I told a police officer I was suicidal.
So they've removed your children on the basis of what, mental health, that you're suicidal. Did you ever say this to the policeman?
No.
So they've just made up an accusation and basically taken your child under, after you've disclosed that the father's abusing them. And then so what happened to the kids? Where did they go?
So I was told that it was only going to be for 48 hours.
Yeah.
And this was on the Friday. So I was told by Monday they would contact me, and they would assess whether it was safe for the children to come back into my care if I had a medical clearance. They told me that there was an ambulance on the way and that I had to go to hospital, and that they were waiting for me at the mental hospital to arrive. And
so it's like they're either creating some sort of story, like they're building up evidence against you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I said, look, I'm not suicidal. At no point did I say that I was suicidal. I'm happy to go and get a clearance, but you can't just take my children from me, take my phone, so I can't even contact a friend and then tell me that, you want to admit me based on a false allegation.
So do you know the policeman that's made the allegation? Have you got that in writing that said you were suicidal?
No, to this day I've asked for that information, and apparently, they have a right to protect the police officer.
Fuck's sake. Yeah. So I've heard this story many times. They take them under future potential harm, and they can claim that any parent's got mental health problems, and you see it a lot of times with these rings. But anyway, so go on. So you went and got a mental health assessment, or
Yeah, and I got a clearance, and I was sent home that evening. I given a follow-up phone call on the Sunday with the psychologist, and she was lovely, and she said there wouldn't be any reason why my children wouldn't be returned home to me by Christmas, and that I was going through a very stressful time, and that was understandable if I was struggling, but otherwise I was doing fine. So in my mind, my children were coming home to me for Christmas.
So you're still naive at this point,
Yeah.
believing that
Yeah.
there's all just been some
Misunderstanding.
crazy mix-up, and
Yeah.
the kids are coming back. So then what happened after that? Obviously, the children haven't come home.
No.
Whose custody do they go into?
So on the Monday, I'm waiting to hear back from Territory Families, and I'm calling. I can't get through. I finally called the office, and the number that they'd given me was actually a number that doesn't even exist. So I had to find their office number online. The case manager, I couldn't get through to her at all. And I was told by the ladies at the office that she was in court that day. I now know she was in court getting an extension on the protection order without my knowledge. So they basically, taken away all my rights to even have a right to, be there in court and represent myself, and
So with how the family courts work, is the parent even allowed to be within the courts? I've heard it's usually just a social worker and a police officer.
I'm not really sure. But I had a right to know. I know that much, and I wasn't even told.
So you're just being hoodwinked at every turn.
Yeah.
So then what happened from there?
So it wasn't until the following day they contacted me, and I was told that they had got a 2-week extension order on the temporary protection order. This time on the allegation that a friend of mine, not even really a friend, an acquaintance who's never even been around my children in my home, was a potential risk. Apparently my daughter had disclosed that he had touched her inappropriately, which I know isn't true. The 2-week extension was placed under, another false allegation. And then when they managed to clear that, they then went to court on the 31st. And 31st of December, and they didn't give me time to even get a lawyer. At this point, like, most lawyers are away on holidays.
Yes, they've done it right on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, even legal aid is shut.
So that was another coincidence, clearly strategic that they've picked that day.
Yeah, and they only told me about the court date 2 days beforehand. And they gave me the affidavit, which was 101 pages long, 5 minutes before walking into court. So I didn't even have time to read what they had said, or what they were proposing, or any of that. I went in unrepresented, and it was on a day that was Youth Justice Day. They'd intentionally moved the court date to a Youth Justice Day, so I couldn't even get a duty lawyer. And the judge was a judge for youth justice. She didn't even have the knowledge of child protection, really.
Right. So what? It's just unbelievable, and it's just so many coincidences. These aren't coincidences. You can just see the steps all along the way that they're hell and bent to remove these kids from you, and to keep them within the abuse ring. So what happened as a result of the court? Yeah,
so I actually only found out the day beforehand, because they finally let me have a supervised visit with my children the day before going into court on the 31st. So on the 30th, I had a supervised visitation with my children after having no contact with them over Christmas. They alleged that they had tried to call me. They hadn't. I tried to call them several times. Even on Christmas Eve, I kept trying, and I couldn't get through. It was actually at the supervised visitation the day before going to court that my children told me they had been with their father since Christmas Eve, whilst there was still an open investigation where
So
he was the main perpetrator.
They've put the kids back into the care of who they've made accusations of abuse against.
Yeah.
And you've been removed from. So how do you feel as a mother to go there? How disgusting you have to have a supervised visit with your own children, and they've put.
Yeah.
It's beyond fucking disgusting. So so what did the kids have they made? It depends what you might say or what you don't, but is how many visitations have you had with the children since they were removed?
5.
You've had 5, all supervised visits in like a public place or?
Yeah, so with my son, all supervised, and with my daughter, I've had 2, which weren't. But yeah, that's it. And we're in July now. So with my son, without my knowledge or consent, the father sent him away to Queensland to live with the grandmother for a while, and that didn't work out. So they sent him back up here, and I actually found out from someone else that he was back up here and he'd been placed in the care of Territory Families. So he's in a foster situation.
Yeah, I was going to say, so he's in foster care at the moment, and he's had like a lot of behavioural problems that have come as a result of this, and that's sort of why he's been moved around.
Yeah, he's been bounced around because they can't control him.
Yeah. So, so you believe he's in foster care now, or you don't know?
Yeah, so I know that he is, because obviously I contacted Territory Families, and they didn't make it easy for me, just to do a welfare check to find out if he was back here and if he was in the care of Territory Families. I had to call the police several times, and they kept wiping the job number off the system and saying, there's no evidence here of a phone call, or, so it was really frustrating, and they kind of
they're actually wiping evidence of what the trial, and you've been pretty steadfast in trying to find out this information, but you just blocked at every turn, aren't you? So your son's in foster care, your daughter at the moment
still in the care of her father, and it was April. I got to have a 2-hour visitation with her. This was unsupervised, and within an hour of the visit, and after not having seen her for a month, she disclosed to me that her father was escalating the abuse, that she was in pain from the amount of abuse she was going through on a daily basis. And, even though, once bitten, twice shy, I suppose, I in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have gone to the police again. But
so she's made accusations again to you in April. You've gone to the police again. She said that her father's escalated the abuse, which could possibly be because your son's not there, maybe. I don't know, but so you've gone to the police again.
Yeah, I guess I was just horrified.
Can you? You don't have to go into detail, but what it's like a similar sort of abuse that she said
Yeah.
this time? Was it just from the father, or was it other people as well?
She only spoken about her father this time around.
Yeah.
But she said it was, it was quite violent and that she was in pain, her to go to the toilet. And, as a mother, I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't just send her back to her dad and know that I hadn't done something. And I guess I hoped.
Yeah, you just send her back, yeah.
I hope
and the only thing you can do is go in the system with the police.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on. Yeah.
Yeah, I just hope that this time around I might come across a police officer that might help us.
And you're just praying there's a good one in the system.
Yeah, it wasn't the case.
So what happened as a result of you've gone in and reported to police? Was she interviewed again?
Yeah, so they allowed me to keep her overnight and they let the father know. And in the morning we went and had another CFI. Again, it was alleged that she made no disclosures.
So they're just running with the same tactic again.
And it was the same people, the same police from in the beginning. They brought them back in. And
so there's a group of cops that are overseeing this case. Right.
Yeah, and to be honest, when they turned up, I just immediately my heart sank because I knew they weren't going to do the right thing.
So this is a group of cops that we're gathering is covering this up. It's working for.
Yeah.
So they've said she's made no accusations, and then what? Case closed. That's it. There's no documentation of any reporting or.
Yeah, so I was told that I had to send her back to her father, which was really difficult. But I had no choice because I was told if I didn't, I was breaching orders and that I would get arrested. And then it was alleged that later on, about a couple of months later, it was alleged in court that I had kidnapped and withheld my daughter. They left out the part that I'd actually taken her to the police, and police were aware of that. So
who's made the report that you've kidnapped? Is that the police that have done that?
I'm not sure who made that report, but it was used in court because at this point it's out of the protection courts and it's moved into the family court now.
Yeah.
And I was waiting to go into the family court. I had a lawyer at this point who was supposed to be acting for me. And, I'd gone through 3 different lawyers at this point, and each one of them had done wrong by me. They had gone to court and passed orders without my knowledge or consent, or just misinformed me. This happened again this time around. I wasn't told till after the court hearing, where I wasn't even aware that there was a court date.
So your solicitor's not even telling you that there's a court date?
No.
And so you're starting to realise that these people, no one's there to help you.
No.
The police aren't there to help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Child protection's not there to help you. The lawyers aren't helping you.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you thinking at this point?
I realised that there is something really wrong here. I'm not,
there's too much coordination.
I'm not imagining it.
Yeah.
Because it was alleged in court that, I was dangerous and I had kidnapped my child, and it was even alleged that my lawyer had tried to contact me, which he hadn't. So it was made out like I just didn't turn up because I didn't care and I was uncontactable and that I was dangerous and mentally unwell and a danger to my children. And throughout this whole thing, it's, I've been accused of coaching my children and emotionally harming them because I have crazy ideas that they've been abused.
And you see so many times in family court where the father's stitched up in many times. And in this situation, it's a complete opposite, and they're going back into the care of So, was there any more? Have you found any more disclosures since then?
I've had to, fight really hard just to get the one supervised visit that I was allowed on Sunday just gone, and with my son and my daughter. And during this visit, my daughter made disclosures to me that the police had attended the home and she'd overheard them speaking to her father, basically telling her father that he needed to back off on abusing her, obviously bringing too much attention, especially now, like, I've been really applying the pressure. Like, for a while I felt defeated, like no one would help me, no lawyer would help me, they were just doing the wrong thing by me. I was almost at a point of completely giving up when I sought help of a human rights ambassador, and a couple of people that he's connected to, and they fought for me and my children. And
so if I would just stop you there, and then we'll get on to that. I just want people to hear what you just said there.
Yeah.
That the daughter has disclosed that police visited the father's house who's abusing her and told the father to back off the abuse for now.
Yeah.
And you believe this is possibly because of the pressure you're putting on.
Yeah.
This showing complete connection, that the police know about the abuse, they've admitted it, and to say back off the abuse because they're kind of onto you.
Yeah.
This is absolute corruption, and shows there's a criminal syndicate that is involving the police, this underbelly up here. That's an unbelievable statement anyway. So there is, if there's any good to this story, it is like you said, you've hit basically rock bottom. You're getting stonewalled at every turn. Like, I don't know how you must have felt at that point, but there's been however it's happened, you've come across some really beautiful people that are just out of the kindness of their heart fighting for you, and they've been able to help you quite a lot, and even have been able to sort of help us connect and get this done today too. Do you want to talk a little bit, without mentioning names, just talk about how they've helped you and where the fight sort of is at the moment? We'll talk about them for a bit, and then we might discuss what's happening with court at the moment. Or
these people, it was like a mutual friend that suggested to me that they could offer some help, and so a human rights ambassador, and another person who has been working in suicide prevention and youth justice. So for a number of years, were able to offer me some support and help me to navigate the system. Like, they've seen it countless times, like with other parents trying to navigate systemic abuse. And
so they come across similar cases to yours. And in pedophile rings operating within the territory.
And obviously aided by territory families, they've come across a lot of corruption within the system up here, and basically territory families protecting the perpetrators, safeguarding the pedophiles rather than the children, and putting the children at risk. And because of their knowledge and having navigated the system many times before, I feel like we're actually making progress. I'm feeling hopeful. I'm feeling supported.
Is this part of why? Like, what was your motivation for wanting to do this interview today? Is that part of it as well?
Yeah, so obviously, when this initially began, I didn't imagine for a minute that my children wouldn't be coming home to me by Christmas, let alone that here we are, it's July of the following year, and they're still not home with me, they're still not safe. Even though I have people helping me now and I'm starting to feel a bit more positive.
The kids are still being abused.
Yeah. And, there's a possibility that it could be a bit of a longer journey. And I feel like I need to get the story out there. And, there's a chance that there might be someone else going through something similar, maybe even here in Darwin. And if I can, if this could help someone else to.
So you're not just doing it for your own children, that that there's obviously a ring here, and there's many kids that are being abused. What do we have any? Are you looking at taking this any further? Have you approached other people with your story? At what levels of the system are they aware of your case?
So at this point in time, there are some federal ministers that are aware and are helping, have offered assistance. I won't go into details. I actually don't know too much of the details myself, and I've left it that way because I feel a bit safer. I don't know everything. The people that are helping me kind of, they take the lead on all that stuff, and I do find it a bit overwhelming. It's a tough system to navigate if you don't really know it that well. So I'm very grateful that I have people supporting me that do know it. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any? So you've said you kind of were a bit naive. So you had no idea the kids were being abused. Do you have any information to, in retrospect, to look back and say that the abuse was happening a lot earlier before it was disclosed?
Yeah. So in hindsight, ever since both my son and daughter were around only about even before 18 months old, really, there were signs. Like with my son, who is now 11, he suffered from severe constipation. And, we were back and forth at doctors' clinics. We tried everything. He had lots of tests. He had lots of different medications that we tried him on.
So was he having constipation at quite a young age?
Yeah, and, he'd have anal fissures and bleeding. And again, not for a minute did I think.
You just didn't comprehend that could have been going on.
No, and actually very recently I was able to obtain medical files from the hospital after a bit of going back and forth and kind of arguing with them about it, that he was in hospital recently on a 2-day admission for severe issues with his bowels. And
so how recently was it? This year?
Like last week.
So while he's in foster care, he's had problems with his bowels bleeding from the rectum, which was a sign of sexual abuse. So he's gone out of the care of the father, went to the grandparents as well. Came back and is in foster care. And you've got medical records that shows that he's likely being abused again. In foster care.
Yeah, and his father does have access to him still at the moment, even though. So I don't know if he's being abused by his father or.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. And what about your daughter? Was there any signs in retrospect as well, looking back to when she was younger?
Yeah. So when she was only 16 months old. Her grandmother, on her father's side, was up on holidays, and she was in the care of them, and upon returning that evening, she had a little bump on her head. And I didn't think anything of it because she was always quite clumsy. She had balance issues.
Yeah.
And, and I assumed that if it was anything to be worried about, they would have told me and sought medical attention straight away. We went to bed that night thinking everything's okay. We woke up in the morning and she had 2 severe swollen black eyes, like she couldn't see out of them. And her front of her head was really swollen. And I was horrified.
What age was she at this age?
She's 16 months.
16
so
months.
She's a year
so she's
old.
basically a toddler, a baby.
Yeah, she's a baby. And, so I called my ex-partner and I called his mother and I said, what on earth has happened for her to be this, have this horrific injury? Like, obviously, that's quite something with a deep impact for it to take that long time.
We're talking like classic panda eyes.
Yeah.
Black
I
eyes,
took photos because, and I still
photo.
have them.
Okay.
And I've used them in evidence to, because we're going for an appeal at the moment for this decision made in court. So,
sorry, go on. I didn't want to interrupt. So you've seen it. What did you do? You spoke to the grandmother.
Yeah, and they basically gaslit me and turned it around and made out like I was being crazy and irrational. And she just
there's a
tripped over
16-month baby with swollen black eyes.
Yeah, and she just tripped on the playground. And I said, no, that she's fallen from a great height. There is no way that a little stumble has caused this. And I said, I don't want to argue about it. The fact is, why did you not seek medical attention or tell me? So, I've gone to the clinic. They said it's been left a bit too late to really do anything about it, to apply first aid or anything, but just to obviously observe her.
What did the clinic say that it might have been that caused it?
They didn't really say, it was just assumed that she'd had a fall. And then, obviously I still had concerns. She was in pain and she was really uncomfortable. So we went to the emergency department, and the emergency department asked me if I had any concerns for, abuse or neglect and if Territory Family should be notified. And I said, yes, I do have concerns. This is really concerning. And it wasn't until thereafter that I realised that on the paperwork, they put the mother has no concerns.
You're joking.
Yeah, not joking.
So they've asked you if you've had concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Your daughter's got swollen black eyes.
Yeah.
You said yes, there is neglect.
Yeah.
And they've said you have no concerns.
Mm-hmm.
So just completely frauded the document.
Yeah, and obviously not till all of this is kind of blown up now. I've shown these photos to, these people that are helping me that have seen this countless times, and they said to me that they told me what it was.
So it's a result of severe trauma through sexual abuse.
Yeah.
So so that's 16 months, and then this kind of didn't make sense at the time. Now, but in retrospect, it's likely the abuse was, and so this was happening from the in-laws.
Yeah, and I wish I'd known earlier, and I wish I'd known what signs to look out for, but I guess we're not educated on these things for a reason.
Yeah. Oh, where do we go from here? So where are we? You've mentioned there's federal ministers that are aware of your case.
Yeah.
Obviously, the police have got records. So where are you at the moment as far as legally? You don't have to mention anything about the case, but maybe what's kind of the next steps that you're taking at the moment?
We've been approved for an appeal, and they've not made it an easy process for us. It's been really difficult. They've intentionally made it difficult to obtain evidence, medical files, even court documents, transcripts, of court hearings that were had without me even being present. And it's been really enlightening, put it that way, to find out what has gone on without my knowledge or consent. And it's been pretty clear that there's been a reason that they've withheld this information from me. So we're in the process of the appeal right now, and that's where we're at, just appealing the decision made in court. Obviously, my objective is to get the children home safe with me.
Yeah.
And then just one step at a time thereafter. Yeah.
So actually, I'll just stop here and ask too that anyone that's watching this, that we very strongly believe in the power of prayer, and that if people could please pray for these children, and that they're taken out of harm's way, and that there's justice. Just that we can get these kids back. So if people could put their prayers and thoughts with you at the moment and the children, that'd be greatly appreciated if anyone could do that. I kind of it depends how much you want to go into it or not too, but how much the signs have you seen that this is a ring, and particularly what is the interest within your family, or you don't know? Or how much evidence have you started to see that this is it's a very well interconnected ring, and does the ring actually go outside territory borders? That it's a case possibly for federal police as well.
Yeah, well, there is that possibility because of the fact that our son has been interstate with family members, I believe, are involved.
But there are no disclosures of abuse interstate?
No. Well, yeah. And then there's, the fact that other members that involved were perpetrators that my daughter has named have a military background. So, obviously, again, it's people that have a certain, high-level background, whatever you call it. Obviously, with my history of abuse, there's military involvement there. I'm starting to see that there's a pattern here, and that maybe, not maybe, definitely this is all, been planned in a way. Like, there's no coincidence this is happening to my children.
You see, you've kind of gathered that it's a multi-generational abuse family, and we know with trauma it carries down the line that there's more likelihood for dissociation too with your children as well.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, I want this to end here now with me and my children, and I'm not going to give up until that happens. And they're home safe, and we break this generational curse, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of amazing how you get these little pockets like you, these souls that come in to these families and can try and break that mold. Is there anything else I haven't touched on that's important? I can't think of too much more at the moment. Do you?
To be honest, like there's
so much more.
And I'm discovering more things almost every day. I'm learning something new that I didn't know before about either my childhood history or my mother's, or more things in this case with my children that I didn't know about. So yeah, there's a lot to this, and there's so many layers.
So, I mean, how, yeah, and you're starting to believe that it's quite high up.
Yeah,
Some of the perpetrators that not only your children but yourself
yeah,
may have been abused by or have been abused by.
yeah. Well, I've had memories, where I believe that there are people that are pretty high up involved.
Yeah, we don't need to say who, but yeah,
Yeah,
we're talking very high level abusers, and
yeah,
to me, it's at the moment it does appear that you've made quite a lot of leeway. You kind of push the system a bit here and to me, I just admire your courage. I've been speaking a lot about courage lately, and that I really hope that your story helps other people to find their courage too, because it's just unbelievable. And you're an amazing person
thank you.
for just, I mean, like you've told me, it's like, what else do you do?
Yeah.
Like, what other choice do you do? You either keel over and die, you keep fighting now, and
Yeah,
that's mother's love, isn't it?
exactly. And one thing I wanted to add too was just that I've noticed that there's been a few people planted into my life, or infiltrators, especially lately as we put more pressure on.
Yeah.
People that I'm not particularly friends with or really associate with, that suddenly, turn up to meetings that have been planned around, the involvement with the case and all of that, and no one invited them, and no one really knows what they were doing there, or inviting themselves on like trips that I'd planned with a couple of friends, and no one really knows how they knew about it, and asking questions about me and pretending to know people that I'm connected to when they don't. And then there was earlier on the day that I was due at court on the 31st last year, that someone had broken into my home, but, picked the lock, so done it a really neat kind of way.
Yeah.
And moved things around just to let
so they're using intimidation tactics to let you know that that they're watching you. And have you had other threats or stalking or anything of such? Or?
Not really that I'm aware of. It's more just I'm noticing that people, these random people, are just like planting themselves into my life. And it's just, it gets to a point where I'm starting to get a bit suspicious of like everyone I suppose I have to be. But I just wanted to add that just in case, someone else is going through this and they kind of know what to look out for.
Yeah.
Because I have trusted the wrong people, and it has put me a few steps back. Because obviously they're, going back and sharing information.
But it's, when you're not in this world and you're very naive, and you start to learn that they got their little foot soldiers and agents everywhere.
Yeah.
But I think you got pretty good discernment at the moment too, and intuition. So,
yeah.
But I think that is key as well too. That if people are going through the same thing, not to be naive about the people that have been around you for a long time.
Yeah. There's people that were planted back when my daughter was just a baby, even. So in hindsight now, I see that, but
yeah. So if you're happy, we can do follow-ups in time when you feel safe. And again, I'll just ask everyone praise for these kids, and that we get them home safe. Is there anything else you want to add? I'm a bit stuck on it. I think that's probably, we've covered most of it. But do you have any final words or anything?
Not really, other than throughout this I have connected to a few other people that are going through similar things, or have gone through similar, quite high profile people, and they've really helped me on this journey. They've given me courage and strength, to carry on when I felt like giving up. And and just the power of, them sharing their stories with me has been, it's just been so powerful. And the power of prayer. And to be honest, I didn't have a good relationship with God for a very long time. And it wasn't until all of this happened that I found God again. And that's the one thing that's really helped me through all of this, my connection with God and prayer.
I think that's like a beautiful way to end it too, because amongst the absolute hell that you've been living, there's been some real little divine sparks from the story that you've told me, the people that you've met, and and like you say again, your connection with God and Creator. That I think it's absolutely key, and that whatever's happening now with your kids, any contracts or karma, that this is coming to an end now. It has to end.
Yeah, I've been
and the people that are naive and look the other way around these stories, this is part of the reason we're living in this environment, because people just want to get on with their life, and it's just absolutely fucking disgusting. Excuse me, but it has to end. But I think that from what I've heard from you, that connection is probably what saved you up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it was probably that moment that Territory Families were at my doorstep.
Yeah.
And they took my daughter from my arms, that something washed over me, and it was just this feeling of calm.
Really?
And energy.
At that moment?
Yeah, at that moment. And I knew I needed to hold it together, because they were going to section me. And then I was going to have no hope, because they would have complete power over me.
For any reason to,
Yeah, and I just had this eerie calm, and I have ever since. I haven't been really angry or anything like that. It's like it's borrowed strength from God.
You actually, for me, like I'm amazed how you're very, very focused on what you need to do at the moment. Even like with this, like you want to be you seem very focused and on your goal. So that's unbelievable that and that's come from somewhere else, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there were moments where I felt really defeated, and I just felt broken down into nothing, and I was just crying like for days on end. And I prayed, and it was at that moment that the right people came through to me, and I do believe that they were sent.
That was sent
by God.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like just getting from what I've heard, your stuff happening in the background. There's just this beautiful group of people that are standing with you. I think that's going to help you for sure. Do you want to end it there?
Yeah.
Thanks so much. All right. Just stop it here. So again, if everyone could please, like we just spoke about, the power of prayer, if everyone could keep her in their prayers and the children, that would be fantastic. And we might get back to you in the future about how this ends up. So cheers.